The air in the art room at Westwood High smelled like cheap acrylic paint and teenage sweat, a thick mix that clung to everything. Jasmine Carter sat near the back, her long fingers smudged with charcoal as she dragged them across a sketch pad. At 19, she was older than most of the kids in the room, her broad shoulders hunched over the desk, her dark braids spilling over one side like a curtain. She'd learned to keep her head down since moving to this stuck-up suburban school in Atlanta, but it didn't stop the stares or the whispers. The room buzzed with the low hum of chatter, kids laughing about weekend plans, their voices sharp and careless. Jasmine tuned it out, her pencil scratching against the paper, tracing shapes that didn't mean anything. Just something to keep her hands busy. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her at first. Didn't catch the faint snip of metal until it was too late. A quick, sharp tug yanked at the back of her scalp, and then a thick braid, tightly woven, heavy with history, fell into her lap. The room went quiet for a split second, like the air had been sucked out, before Trey Larson's voice cut through it like a blade. "Yo, lighten up, girl. That shit's gotta be heavy as hell. Your neck must be killing you." He dangled the severed braid in front of her, swinging it like a trophy, his blue eyes glinting with a mix of cruelty and glee. Cody Walsh, slouched at the next table, barked out a laugh, slapping his knee. "Man, you wild for that!" Landon Hayes, leaning back in his chair with that smug grin of his, chimed in. "She's gonna need a chiropractor now, damn." Jasmine didn't move right away. Her hand tightened around the braid in her lap, the frayed ends brushing her palm like a wound she couldn't feel yet. She could hear the snickers spreading through the room, a ripple of amusement that made her skin burn. Her jaw clenched, the muscles twitching under her dark skin, but she kept her eyes on the desk, on the pencil lines she'd been drawing. She'd been through worse, way worse, back in the Southside projects, where you didn't cry unless you wanted a bigger target on your back. This wasn't new, just louder. Near the door, Noah Bennett stood with his arms crossed, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. At 22, he wasn't a student here, just some rich kid who'd rolled up in a sleek black Audi to check on a project his family's tech company was funding for the art department. His shirt was crisp, his watch catching the fluorescent light with every lazy flick of his wrist. He'd been half listening to Mrs. Foster drone on about supplies when Trey pulled the stunt, and now his green eyes locked onto the scene like it was the best damn show he'd seen all week. "Dumbasses," he muttered under his breath, chuckling to himself. But that's some funny shit right there. He didn't care about the girl, some ghetto chick who probably deserved it, he figured. Watching her squirm felt good, like a cheap thrill he didn't have to pay for. Trey wasn't done. He stepped closer, leaning over her desk, his voice dropping low and mocking. "What's wrong, Jazz? You gonna cry now? Go back to the hood and get a new weave or something?" The room erupted again, giggles and gasps mixing into a jagged chorus. Jasmine's fingers curled tighter around the braid, her knuckles whitening. She could feel the heat creeping up her neck, the familiar sting of humiliation she'd spent years learning to bury. But this wasn't Southside. This was a room full of rich kids who thought they could break her and walk away clean. She stood up slow, the chair scraping against the linoleum with a sound that cut through the laughter like a warning shot. The room froze again, all eyes on her. Trey straightened up, still grinning, but there was a flicker of something in his face. Maybe not fear, not yet, but a crack in his cocky little shell. Jasmine turned to face him, her brown eyes hard as steel, locking onto his. "You think that's it?" she said, her voice low, steady, like she was asking about the weather. Trey blinked, caught off guard. "What?" Before he could figure it out, her fist snapped forward, a clean, brutal right hook that landed square on his cheekbone. The crack of skin on skin echoed in the room, followed by a wet splatter as blood sprayed from his nose. Trey stumbled back, clutching his face, his yelp muffled by his hands. "What the fuck?" Cody jumped up, all bravado and no brains, lunging at her. Jasmine sidestepped, grabbed his arm mid-swing, and twisted it hard, slamming his elbow down onto the edge of a table. He went down with a choked scream, cradling his arm like a baby. Landon shot to his feet, hands raised. "Yo, chill, man. It's just a joke." But his voice shook, and he didn't move closer. Jasmine stood there, breathing steady, her braid still clutched in her left hand. The room was dead silent now, the air thick with shock and something else. Respect, maybe, or just plain fear. Mrs. Foster finally snapped out of her daze, her voice shrill as she shouted, "Jasmine Carter! What is wrong with you? Sit down right now!" But Jasmine didn't sit. She turned, her sneakers squeaking on the floor, and walked out, the door swinging shut behind her with a soft thud. Noah watched her go, his smirk gone, replaced by a furrowed brow. He hadn't expected that. Not the punch, not the way she moved like she'd done it 100 times before. "Well, damn," he muttered, running a hand through his dark hair. Part of him wanted to laugh harder. Girl had some guts. But another part, small and buried, felt a twinge he couldn't name. He shook it off, turning to Mrs. Foster with a shrug. "Guess she's not as soft as she looks. You gonna call security or what?" Outside, Jasmine leaned against the hallway wall, the braid still in her hand. Her chest rose and fell slow, her heart pounding but not racing. She'd promised herself no fights. Not here, not in this fancy-ass school where they'd kick her out faster than she could blink. But promises didn't mean shit when someone took something from you. She slid the braid into her backpack, zipping it up tight, and started walking. The bell rang, and the hall filled with kids, their voices a dull roar she ignored. No one looked at her, not yet. Word would spread soon enough. It had started a few weeks back, when she'd rolled up to Westwood High in her mom's beat-up Honda, the engine coughing like it was on its last leg. Southside Atlanta was a different world. Cracked streets, corner stores with bulletproof glass, and neighbors who'd stab you in the back for $1. Her mom, a nurse who worked doubles at Grady Memorial, had scraped enough together to move them out to the suburbs after some shady landlord jacked up their rent. "Better schools, Jazz," she'd said, her voice tired but firm. "You're 19, still got time to make something of yourself?" Jasmine didn't argue, but she didn't believe it either. Schools like Westwood weren't built for girls like her. The first day, she'd felt the eyes on her. Kids in designer sneakers and polo shirts, staring like she was an alien who'd crash-landed in their perfect little bubble. She'd kept her hoodie up, her braids tucked under the hood, but it didn't stop the whispers. "Ghetto girl," they'd muttered, loud enough to make sure she heard. Cody had bumped her shoulder in the hall, smirking. "Watch it, Queen Latifah." Landon had laughed from the sidelines, tossing out some half-assed line about her attitude. Trey just watched, sizing her up like a hunter picking his shot. She'd ignored it all, kept her hands in her pockets, her jaw tight. She'd dealt with worse back home, guys who'd pull a knife if you looked at them wrong. These punks were loud, but they were soft. Noah had shown up a week later, strutting through the front doors like he owned the place. He wasn't a student, just some rich dude from Buckhead, the kind of guy who'd never set foot in Southside unless his GPS screwed him over. His family's company, Bennett Tech, was throwing money at the art department, and he was there to play big shot. "My pop said I should check it out," he'd told Mrs. Foster, his voice dripping with that entitled drawl. "Make sure y'all don't waste our cash." The teachers ate it up, smiling like he was God's gift. But Jasmine caught the way he looked at everyone, like they were beneath him, ants he could step on if he got bored. She'd seen him in the hall that first time, leaning against a locker, scrolling on his phone. He'd glanced up, caught her eye, and smirked. "Yo, you lost or something?" he'd called out, loud enough for his buddies to hear. She'd kept walking, didn't give him the satisfaction of a reply. He'd laughed anyway, turning to one of his crew. Check her out, straight out of the projects. Bet she's fun at parties. She'd clenched her fists, but didn't turn back. Guys like Noah were all talk, money, and no spine. She'd met plenty of them back home, just with less cash and worse haircuts. The bullying had started small. Little jabs, like Cody knocking her pencil off her desk with a flick of his finger, or Landon whispering, "Ghetto bitch," when she walked by. She'd let it slide, kept her eyes on the clock, counting the minutes till she could get the hell out. She wasn't here to make friends or prove anything. She just wanted to graduate, get a job, help her mom pay the bills. But Trey had taken it too far that day in art class, and she wasn't about to let him walk away thinking he'd won. Back in the hall, she stopped at her locker, the blue paint chipped at the edges. She twisted the lock, her fingers steady, and shoved her sketch pad inside. A couple girls passed by, whispering, their eyes darting to her, then away. She didn't care. Let them talk. She'd heard it all before. Southside kids didn't cry. They fought. And she'd fought harder than any of these soft-ass suburban brats could imagine. Inside the art room, Noah was still lounging by the door, watching Mrs. Foster try to calm Trey down. The kid was whining, holding a wad of tissues to his nose, blood seeping through the white. "She's crazy, man! You saw that, right?" Noah shrugged, his smirk creeping back. "Yeah, I saw. Girl's got a mean swing. Maybe don't fuck with her next time." He didn't mean it as a compliment, just a fact, like commenting on the weather. Trey glared at him, but Noah didn't care. He was already bored, pulling out his phone to text his boys. "Some chick just clocked a dude in art class. Shit's wild." Mrs. Foster turned to him, her face flushed. "Mr. Bennett, this isn't a joke. I need to call security." Noah waved a hand, barely looking up. Yeah, do your thing. I'm just here for the art shit." But as he scrolled through his phone, that twinge hit him again. Something about the way Jasmine had stood there, unbothered, like she didn't give a damn what anyone thought. It stuck with him, even if he wouldn't admit it. Jasmine made it to the front doors, the late afternoon sun blasting through the glass. She pushed them open, the humid Atlanta air hitting her like a wall. Her mom would be pissed. Another suspension meant more missed classes, more chances she'd get held back again. But she couldn't think about that now. She adjusted her backpack, the braid tucked safe inside, and started the long walk home. The school shrank behind her, a white brick box full of kids who didn't get it. She'd be back tomorrow, or maybe the day after, depending on how long they kept her out. Didn't matter. They could suspend her, kick her out, whatever. She wasn't going anywhere until she was done. Back in the art room, Noah glanced at the clock, then out the window where he could just see her disappearing down the street. He shook his head, muttering to himself, "Crazy chick." But there was something in his voice, not just amusement anymore, but a spark of something he didn't know how to handle yet. He shoved his hands in his pockets and sauntered out, already thinking about the next party, the next chance to blow his parents' money. Jasmine Carter was just a blip, a funny story to tell over beers. At least, that's what he told himself. Hey, that punch from Jasmine got your blood pumping, didn't it? And Noah, what a jerk, laughing while she's getting humiliated. This is just the start, y'all. Things are about to get wilder. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. What do you think she's gonna do next? Stick around, 'cause you don't want to miss what's coming. The principal's office at Westwood High smelled like old coffee and stale paperwork. A cramped little box with faded posters about respect and community peeling off the walls. Jasmine Carter sat stiff in a plastic chair, her backpack slung over one shoulder, the severed braid still tucked inside like a secret she wasn't ready to let go. Her dark eyes stayed fixed on a spot above the desk, not blinking, not giving an inch. She'd been here before, Not at this fancy-ass school, but back in Southside, where principals didn't care enough to call you in unless you'd really fucked up. This time, she'd fucked up on purpose. Marcus Reed leaned back in his chair, his gray suit jacket open, tie loose like he'd given up on formality hours ago. He was a tall black man, skin a few shades darker than Jasmine's, with lines etched deep around his eyes, lines that said he'd seen more than he'd ever tell. He tapped a pen against a stack of papers, the rhythm slow and deliberate, studying her like she was a puzzle he hadn't quite cracked. 3 days, he said finally, his voice low, steady. That's what you're getting for busting up Trey Larson's face. School policy, physical altercation, automatic suspension. Jasmine didn't flinch. She'd figured as much. 3 days wasn't shit. She'd been out longer back home for less. She shifted her weight, the chair creaking under her, but kept her mouth shut. Reed tilted his head, narrowing his eyes. You're 19, Jasmine. Older than most of them out there. Bigger, too. They picked the wrong one to mess with, didn't they? There was no judgment in his tone, just a quiet kind of knowing that made her glance at him for the first time. She didn't answer, but her jaw tightened, a flicker of something passing through her face. Pride, maybe, or just exhaustion. Reed leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. I saw the tape, he said, tapping the pen once more before dropping it. Security cam caught the whole thing. Trey with the scissors, Cody egging him on, Landon sitting there like a damn cheerleader. They started it. You finished it. He paused, letting that hang between them. I could make this go away. Self-defense, clean slate. But rules are rules, and I've got parents breathing down my neck already. 3 days is the best I can do. Jasmine nodded once, short and sharp. Fine. Her voice was flat, like she didn't care either way. She didn't need his pity or his favors. She just needed to get through this school, get her diploma, get out. Reed sat back, crossing his arms. I was a kid like you once, he said, almost to himself. Southside, too. Different part, same shit. They called me hood rat, threw shit at me in the halls. I know that look you've got. The one that says you'll burn it all down before you let 'em break you. Don't let 'em douse that fire, Jasmine. You hear me? She met his eyes then, really met them, and for a second she saw something she recognized. Someone who'd fought the same fights, carried the same weight. Yeah, she said, softer this time. I hear you. Reed nodded, satisfied, and slid a suspension slip across the desk. Sign it, take it home, be back in 3 days, and keep your head up. Folks around here don't like it when you don't bend. Jasmine scrawled her name on the paper, grabbed her bag, and stood. She didn't say goodbye, just walked out, the door clicking shut behind her. The hallway was empty now, the late bell long gone, leaving nothing but the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. She adjusted her hoodie, pulling it tight over her braids, what was left of them, and headed for the exit. 3 days. She could handle that. She'd handled worse. Outside, the Atlanta sun was dipping low, painting the sky a bruised orange. Jasmine cut through the parking lot, her sneakers scuffing the asphalt, when she heard the rumble of an engine pulling up beside her. She didn't look at first, didn't care, until a voice called out, loud and cocky. Yo, badass! Hold up a sec. She stopped, turning slow, her eyes narrowing as Noah Bennett leaned out the window of his black Audi, grinning like he'd just won something. He killed the engine and stepped out, all swagger and expensive clothes, jeans that probably cost more than her mom's rent, a watch flashing under the fading light. At 22, he carried himself like he owned the world, or at least the parts his parents had bought for him. I saw you clock that dude in art class, he said, crossing his arms, that smirk still plastered on his face. Pretty dope swing you got there. Ever think about going pro? His tone was mocking, like he was tossing her a bone just to see if she'd bite. Jasmine stared at him, her expression flat as pavement. I don't need your commentary, rich boy. What you want? She shifted her weight, ready to keep walking. Noah laughed, a sharp, careless sound. Damn, you're prickly. I'm just saying, you're tough, right? How about you do something with it? I'm funding this art thing. Could throw some cash your way, let you paint some hood shit, whatever you're into. Make it a show. I'm bored as hell anyway. She tilted her head, sizing him up. I don't need your money, and I damn sure don't need you. I ain't your charity case. Her voice was steel, cutting through his bullshit like a blade. Noah raised his hands, mock surrender, but his eyes glinted with amusement. Whoa, chill. Not charity, just business. I put up the dough, you do your thing, I get to look good. Win-win. Unless you're scared to step up. Jasmine's lips twitched, not quite a smile. Scared ain't in my vocab, but I don't trust you. You're one of them, laughing while they cut me down. Why should I give a damn what you want? Noah shrugged, leaning against his car. I ain't them. I don't care enough to hate you. I just like watching shit go down. Keeps life interesting. You're interesting. So, what you say? She didn't answer right away, just stared at him, her mind ticking. She didn't like him, didn't trust his slick-ass grin or the way he talked like everything was a game. But money was money, and she wasn't dumb enough to turn down a chance to shove it in their faces. Herself, not broken, but loud and unmissable. I'll think about it, she said finally, turning to walk away. Don't hold your breath. Noah chuckled, climbing back into his car. I got time, badass. Catch you later. He peeled out, tires squealing, leaving her standing there in a cloud of exhaust. Jasmine shook her head, muttering under her breath, asshole. But something about his offer stuck with her, a tiny crack in the wall she'd built around herself. That night, she hit the boxing gym down on Moreland Avenue, a rundown spot with cracked mirrors and bags patched up with duct tape. The air smelled like sweat and leather, the kind of place that felt more like home than Westwood ever would. She'd found it a month back, after the move, needing somewhere to let the anger out before it ate her alive. The old guy who ran it, Reggie, nodded as she walked in, his gray beard twitching. Rough day, huh? He said, tossing her a pair of gloves. She caught them mid-air, nodding back. Something like that. She wrapped her hands slow, methodical, the tape pulling tight against her knuckles. The first punch hit the bag hard, a dull thud that echoed through the empty gym. Then another and another, her rhythm picking up, her breath sharp and steady. Trey's face flashed in her mind, his smirk, his scissors, his blood on the floor. She hit harder, the bag swinging wild, her arms burning. She didn't stop until her hands were raw, the skin split across her knuckles, blood seeping through the tape. She leaned against the bag, panting, her hoodie soaked with sweat. Reggie wandered over, hands in his pockets. You gonna tell me what's up, or just keep killing my equipment? Jasmine wiped her face with her sleeve, catching her breath. Some punk cut my hair at school. I fucked him up, got suspended. Reggie raised an eyebrow, then chuckled, a low rumble. Sounds about right. You good, though? She nodded, flexing her hands. Yeah, I'm good. He didn't push, just patted her shoulder and shuffled off. She stayed another hour, pounding the bag until the gym closed. The anger still there, but quieter now, simmering instead of boiling over. Back home, her mom was still at work, the apartment silent except for the hum of the fridge. Jasmine dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her sneakers, and sank onto the couch. The TV flickered on, some late-night news drone she didn't care about, but it filled the quiet. She pulled the braid out of her bag, running her thumb over the frayed end. It wasn't just hair. Not to her. It was her mom's hands braiding it tight every Sunday, her grandma's stories about their roots, the one thing she'd carried from Southside that they couldn't touch. Until they did. A knock at the door snapped her out of it. She frowned, shoving the braid back in her bag, and got up. Through the peephole, she saw Keisha, her friend from school, short, loud, with a head full of box braids and a grin that meant trouble. Jasmine opened the door, leaning against the frame. "What you want, girl? It's late." Keisha pushed past her, flopping onto the couch like she owned it. "Heard you fucked up Trey Larson today. Whole school's talking about it. You a legend now, Jazz." Jasmine snorted, shutting the door. "Ain't no legend. Just pissed off." Keisha kicked her feet up, smirking. "Same thing. You 19, bigger than them little punks. Don't let 'em play you. Come out with me tomorrow night. Hit up this bar downtown. We'll show 'em you don't break." Jasmine hesitated, then shook her head. "I'm suspended, not stupid. Ain't trying to get in more shit." Keisha laughed, loud and sharp. "You already in it, girl. Might as well own it. Think about it. Use that fire, knock 'em dead." Jasmine didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. Keisha bounced up, heading for the door. "I'll text you. Don't sleep on it." She was gone before Jasmine could argue, leaving her alone again. She sank back onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. 3 days out of school, a rich asshole throwing money at her, and now Keisha pulling her into God knows what. She didn't know what was next, but she knew one thing. She wasn't bending for nobody. A few miles away, Noah lounged in his Buckhead penthouse, the city skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. He was sprawled on a leather couch, a beer in one hand, his phone in the other, scrolling through texts from his boys. The art class stunt was still buzzing in his head. Not Trey's dumbass move, but the way Jasmine had swung back. No hesitation, no fear. He'd laughed it off then, but now it nagged at him, an itch he couldn't scratch. "Tough chick," he muttered, taking a swig of beer. "Wonder what else she's got." He'd meant it when he offered her the gig, mostly. It was a chance to flex his cash, look good for his parents, maybe get a kick out of watching her squirm under the spotlight. But there was something else, too, a spark he hadn't expected. She wasn't like the girls he ran with, all fake smiles and daddy's credit cards. She was raw, real, and it threw him off. He tossed his phone aside, leaning back, that smirk creeping up again. "Let's see if she bites," he said to the empty room, already plotting how to play it. The next day, Jasmine walked back to the gym, the suspension slip crumpled in her pocket. She didn't know what she'd do with Noah's offer, didn't trust him, didn't like him, but she couldn't shake it either. The bag was waiting when she got there, and she hit it hard, each punch a promise. They could cut her down, suspend her, whatever. She'd still stand back up. The gym on Moreland Avenue was quieter than usual, the late afternoon sun slanting through the dusty windows, casting long shadows across the cracked concrete floor. Jasmine Carter stood in front of the heavy bag, her hands wrapped tight, knuckles still raw from the night before. She'd been at it for an hour already, each punch landing with a dull thud, her breath sharp and controlled. The suspension slip sat crumpled in her backpack by the wall. 3 days out of Westwood High, 3 days to figure out what came next. She didn't care about the break. She cared about what it meant. They'd pushed her, and she'd pushed back. But now the game was shifting, and she could feel it in her bones. Reggie shuffled over, his gray sweat sagging, a towel slung over his shoulder. "You gonna tell me what's eating you today, or we just gonna let that bag take the hit?" he asked, his voice gravelly but warm. Jasmine didn't stop, her fists slamming into the leather, the chains rattling overhead. "Same shit, different day," she said between breaths. "School's a circus, and I'm the clown they keep poking." Reggie chuckled, shaking his head. "Clowns don't hit like that, Jazz. You more like a lion, pissed off and ready to roar." She paused, leaning against the bag, wiping sweat from her brow with the back of her glove. "Yeah, well, lions get tired too." Reggie nodded, not pushing, and wandered back to the front desk, leaving her to her rhythm. She didn't tell him about Noah's offer, not yet. It was still a tangle in her head, a mix of suspicion and temptation she hadn't unraveled. Money was one thing, trusting a rich asshole like him was another. She threw one last punch, hard enough to make the bag swing wide, then stepped back, flexing her hands. Tired or not, she wasn't done fighting. Back at Westwood, word about the art class brawl had spread like wildfire, twisting and growing with every whisper. By the time Jasmine's suspension hit day 2, the story wasn't just about her punching Trey anymore. It was about her crazy ghetto ass losing it over a little prank. Keisha had texted her that morning, all caps and emojis. "They saying you went psycho, LOL, you good?" Jasmine hadn't replied. She didn't need the noise. She'd spent the day at home, sketching on the couch, the TV droning in the background, her mom's night shift leaving the apartment empty and quiet. The knock came around noon, loud and insistent. Jasmine groaned, tossing her sketchpad aside, and dragged herself to the door. Keisha stood there, rocking a bright red jacket and a grin that screamed trouble. "Girl, you ghosting me now?" she said, pushing past Jasmine without waiting for an invite. "Whole school's buzzing. Trey's got a busted nose, Cody's arms all jacked up, and Landon's acting like he wasn't even there. You a damn hero, Jazz." She flopped onto the couch, kicking her sneakers up on the coffee table. Jasmine shut the door, leaning against it with her arms crossed. "Ain't no hero. Just done with their bullshit." Keisha laughed, loud and sharp. "That's what makes you a hero, dummy. You 19, bigger than them punks. Don't let 'em play you. Noah's still talking that art show mess too. You in or what?" Jasmine's jaw tightened, her eyes narrowing. "He's a jackass. Laughing while they cut me down, now he wants to play boss. I don't trust him." Keisha shrugged, picking at her nails. "Don't gotta trust him. Just use him. He's got cash, you got fire. Make him choke on it." She leaned forward, her grin turning sly. "He's pushing it hard, Jazz. Saw him yesterday bragging to his boys about how he's gonna put you on. Sounded like he's halfway into you already." Jasmine snorted, shaking her head. "He's into his own damn ego. I ain't his toy." Keisha raised an eyebrow. "Maybe not, but he's watching. Use that." Jasmine didn't answer, just grabbed her sketchpad and sat back down, flipping it open. Keisha was right about one thing. Money could hit back harder than her fists, and she wasn't above playing dirty if it meant winning. She'd told Noah she'd think about it, and she was, thinking about how to turn his game into hers. Keisha stayed another hour, chattering about the bar she'd mentioned, but Jasmine waved her off. "I'll see," she said, ushering her out. Alone again, she stared at the blank page, her pencil hovering. She didn't know what she'd draw for that show. Not yet. But it'd be loud, raw, something they couldn't ignore. Across town, Noah Bennett was sprawled in his penthouse office, a glass-walled cage overlooking Buckhead's glittering skyline. He'd spent the morning dodging calls from his dad's assistant, some uptight chick named Cheryl, who kept yammering about responsibility and optics. He didn't care. Bennett Tech was his playground, and he'd do what he wanted with it. His phone buzzed on the desk. A text from one of his boys. "That chick you talked about still suspended? She's wild, LOL." Noah smirked, typing back, "Yeah, badass with a mean right hook. Might make her my next project." He'd pitched the art show idea to Mrs. Foster the day before, leaning on his charm and his checkbook. "Give her a space," he'd said, all casual confidence. "Let her do her thing. Paint some gritty shit, whatever. I'll cover it. Looks good for the school, right?" Foster had hesitated, her lips pursing like she'd sucked a lemon, but she'd nodded. "If Jasmine agrees, we'll make it work." Noah had grinned, already imagining the headlines, "Young philanthropist boosts local talent," and the look on his dad's face when he saw it. Plus, it'd be fun watching that Southside girl squirm under the spotlight, proving she wasn't just a punching bag. He didn't expect her to say yes so fast. When she'd texted him late that night, "Fine, I'm in. Don't fuck me over." He'd laughed out loud, alone in his kitchen with a beer. "Well, damn," he'd muttered, typing back. "Deal. Let's make it big." He didn't know why he cared. Maybe it was the way she'd stared him down in that parking lot, like he was nothing special, or the way she'd swung on Trey without blinking. She was a puzzle, and he liked puzzles, especially ones he could solve with cash. The next week flew by in a blur. Jasmine came back from suspension, walking through Westwood's halls with her head high, ignoring the whispers and stares. Noah met her after school in the art room, all grins and swagger, laying out the plan. "We'll do it next Friday. Big setup, lights, the works. You paint whatever you want, I'll handle the rest. Cool?" Jasmine nodded, her voice clipped. "Cool. But this is mine, not yours. Don't forget that." He raised his hands, mock surrender. "All yours, badass. I'm just the money guy." She worked fast, spending every free hour in that room, her hands stained with paint, her sketches turning into canvases, dark, jagged shapes, bodies bent but unbroken, faces that looked like hers but weren't. Noah popped in sometimes, leaning against the doorframe, watching her work. "That's some heavy shit," he'd say, smirking. "You always this intense?" She'd glance up, not smiling. "You always this nosy?" He'd laugh, but he didn't push, didn't need to. She was doing the job, and he was getting the credit. Friday came quick. The gym transformed with spotlights and folding chairs, canvases lined up along the walls, kids milled around, parents in tow, their murmurs filling the space. Jasmine stood by her work, her hoodie swapped for a black shirt that hugged her frame, her braids, what was left, pulled back tight. Noah strutted in late, rocking a tailored jacket, shaking hands like he was running for mayor. "Told you I'd make it big," he said, sidling up to her. She didn't look at him. "Yeah, just don't talk over me." The show started smooth. Mrs. Foster gave a speech, Noah flashed his $1,000,000 smile, and Jasmine stood there, letting her paintings do the talking. People stared, some whispering, some nodding, the air thick with something heavy. Respect, maybe, or just shock. She'd done it, turned their bullshit into something they couldn't ignore. For a minute she felt it. Control, power, the kind she hadn't had since Southside. Then it fell apart. Keisha had been there all night, hovering near the back, her red jacket a splash of color in the crowd. Jasmine hadn't thought much of it. Keisha was loud, sure, but she was solid. Or so she'd thought. By Saturday morning, the rumors hit like a freight train. Jasmine slept with Noah to get the show. She's a gold digger, using him for cash. That's why he funded it. Poor little hood chick spreading her legs. She found out from a text. Keisha, of all people, spilling it like it was nothing. "Girl, they talkin' wild, saying you and Noah a thing. Didn't mean to stir shit, just said you two been tight lately." Jasmine's stomach dropped, her hands shaking as she read it. Keisha had started it. Jealous, maybe, or just dumb, telling some girls at the bar that Jasmine was all over Noah, twisting their late-night planning into something dirty. By Monday, it was everywhere. Snickers in the halls, notes shoved in her locker with shit like Bennett's bitch scrawled in Sharpie. She walked into the cafeteria and the noise dipped, eyes cutting to her like knives. Noah didn't help. When the school board called, pissed about the optics, his parents flipped. Cheryl, the assistant, cornered him on the phone. "This looks bad, Noah. Parents are complaining. Some girl's reputation tied to our name. Fix it." He didn't fight. Didn't want to. "Fine!" he'd snapped, slamming the phone down. He pulled the funding that afternoon, texting Jasmine. "Show's off. Family says no." "Sorry, badass." No call, no explanation, just that. Tuesday night, it got worse. Jasmine showed up at school late, helping Mrs. Foster pack up the canvases when she found them. Her paintings, slashed to ribbons, spray paint scrawled across them. Black trash. Whore. Landon's handwriting, she'd bet. His little revenge for staying out of the fight. She stood there, the gym dark and silent, the shredded canvases at her feet, her chest tight. "Fuck this," she whispered, her voice breaking. Then louder, a scream ripping out of her. "Y'all don't win shit. You hear me? You don't win." She kicked a chair, the metal clattering across the floor, and stormed out, tears burning her eyes for the first time in years. Noah heard about it later. Sprawled in his penthouse, a beer half empty on the table, one of his boys texted, "Yo, they fucked up her art. She's done, LOL." He stared at the screen, that twinge hitting him again, sharper this time. "Damn," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. He'd bailed, laughed it off when Cheryl called, told her, "Not my problem." But seeing her name now, picturing her standing there, alone in that gym, it didn't feel funny anymore. He tossed the phone aside, leaning back. "She'll figure it out," he said to the empty room. But his voice lacked the usual swagger. Jasmine didn't go home that night. She hit the gym instead, the bag waiting like an old friend. She didn't wrap her hands, just swung, bare knuckles splitting against the leather, blood smearing with every hit. Reggie watched from the desk, didn't say a word. She didn't stop until her arms gave out, collapsing against the bag, her breath ragged, tears mixing with sweat. "They don't get me," she gasped, her voice raw. "They don't." She slid to the floor, staring at her hands, the cuts fresh and red. She was 19, tougher than they'd ever know, but tougher didn't mean unbreakable. Her mom found her later, sitting on the couch in the dark, the TV off, the apartment still. She didn't ask, just sat beside her, pulling her close. "You're my girl, Jazz," she said, her voice soft. "You're 19, strong as hell, but you don't gotta carry it all." Jasmine leaned into her, silent, the weight easing just enough to breathe. She didn't know what came next. School, Noah, Keisha, any of it, but she knew she wasn't done. Not yet. Noah, back in Buckhead, couldn't sleep. He stood by his window, the city lights blurring below, replaying that art room scene in his head. Her punch, her fire, the way she'd walked out. He'd laughed then, but now it stuck with him, a thorn he couldn't pull out. "Fuck it," he muttered, grabbing his keys. He didn't know why, but he needed to see her, needed to figure out what the hell she was doing to him. The neon sign above Lucky's Lounge flickered in the humid Atlanta night, casting a red glow over the cracked sidewalk. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and the thump of bass-heavy hip-hop, the kind that rattled your chest if you stood too close to the speakers. Jasmine Carter moved through the crowd, her hips swaying to the beat, a tray of empty glasses balanced on one hand. At 22, she'd traded Westwood High's sterile halls for this, dim lights, sticky floors, and a paycheck that barely covered rent. Her black tank top clung to her frame, sweat beading on her dark skin as she worked the room, dodging drunk hands and fake smiles. 3 years since that shit show with the art exhibit, and she still carried it. Less in her head now, more in the way she squared her shoulders, like she was daring the world to try her again. She'd dropped out after the suspension stretched into expulsion. Too many fights, too many rumors, too much bullshit. Her mom had cried, begged her to stay, but Jasmine couldn't stomach it anymore. "I'll figure it out," she'd said, packing a bag and crashing with Keisha until she found this gig. Dancing paid better than waiting tables, and she was good at it. Strong legs from boxing, a rhythm she'd learned on Southside streets. The tips weren't bad either, enough to chip away at community college tuition, one class at a time. She didn't talk about Westwood much, didn't need to. The scars were there, quiet but deep. The bar was packed tonight, a Friday crowd spilling over from downtown offices and frat houses. Jasmine slid behind the counter, dumping the glasses in a sink that smelled like stale beer. "Yo, Jazz, table 6 wants another round," called out Tasha, the bartender, her voice cutting through the noise. Jasmine nodded, grabbing a tray and loading it up. Whiskey shots, cheap vodka mixers, the usual. She caught her reflection in the smudged mirror behind the bar. Braids pulled back tight, eyes sharp, a face that didn't beg for anything. She liked it that way. Halfway across the room, she felt it. Eyes on her, heavier than the usual leers. She glanced up, and there he was, sitting at a corner table, a bottle of Heineken dangling from his hand. Noah Bennett, 3 years older, 25 now, but she'd know that smug-ass grin anywhere. His hair was longer, curling at the ends, his jaw sharper under a shadow of stubble, but the vibe was the same. Rich kid playing at something he wasn't. He wore a plain black tee, no flashy watch this time, but the way he lounged screamed money, even if it was quieter now. He caught her eye and raised the bottle, that smirk tugging at his lips. "Well, damn," he called out, loud enough to turn heads. "If it ain't the badass herself." Jasmine froze, the tray steady in her grip, her jaw tightening. She hadn't seen him since that text. Show's off. Sorry, badass. Since he'd bailed and left her drowning in the wreckage. She'd heard rumors he'd tanked too, lost most of his trust fund after some fight with his folks, but she didn't care enough to check. Now here he was, looking at her like nothing had happened. "What you want, rich boy?" she said, her voice cold as she set the tray on table 6, not breaking eye contact. The frat guys grumbled, but she ignored them, stepping closer to Noah's table. He leaned back, spreading his arms along the booth. "Just a beer and a chat. You still got that mean swing, or you traded it for this?" He nodded at her outfit, his smirk widening. Jasmine crossed her arms, her stance wide, unyielding. "I swing when I need to. You here to test me, or you just slumming it?" Noah laughed, a low, easy sound that grated on her nerves. "Nah, not testing. I live around here now. Started a little gig, something real. Saw you dancing. You're good, Jazz. Still got that fire." She didn't bite, didn't soften. "Don't call me Jazz like we cool. You fucked me over last time, Noah. Why the hell should I care what you think?" His smirk faltered just for a second, and he sat up straighter, setting the bottle down. "Yeah, I did. I was a dick. Ran when shit got hot. I'm not that guy anymore, or I'm trying not to be." He paused, his green eyes locking onto hers. No bullshit this time. "I've got this app thing. Helps kids report bullying. Get help. Thought of you when I built it. Want to help me make it work?" Jasmine stared at him, her mind ticking. He sounded different, less cocky, more real. But trust wasn't something she gave easy, especially not to him. "You think I'm gonna jump 'cause you snap your fingers? I got bills, Noah, not dreams." He nodded, pulling out a crumpled pack of smokes, offering her one. She shook her head. "Fair," he said, lighting up, the flame flickering in his hand. "It pays. Decent, not millions, but enough. Part-time. Your rules. I need someone who gets it, Jazz. Someone who's been there. That's you. She didn't answer right away, just watched the smoke curl up toward the ceiling, the noise of the bar fading into a dull hum. She didn't need him, didn't want him. But the money sounded good, and the idea of sticking it to the kind of punks who'd fucked her over at Westwood had a pull she couldn't shake. "I'll think about it," she said finally, turning to grab her tray. "Don't get comfy." Noah grinned, exhaling a cloud of smoke. "Wouldn't dream of it. Catch you later, badass." She worked the rest of the night on autopilot, her head buzzing with his words. When her shift ended, she slipped out the back, the alley air cool against her skin. Her apartment was a 10-minute walk, a cramped one-bedroom on the edge of downtown, walls thin enough to hear the neighbors arguing. She'd made it hers. Sketch pads stacked in a corner, a punching bag hanging by the window, the kind of space that held her together when everything else fell apart. Noah didn't let up. He showed up at Lucky's twice that week. Not pushy, just there, nursing a beer, watching her work, dropping bits about the app. "It's got a chat feature," he'd say, casual, like they were old friends. "Kids can talk to counselors real time. Working on encryption now. Keep it safe." She'd nod, keeping her distance, but she listened. By Friday, she caved, texted him. "Fine, I'm in. Part-time, my terms." He shot back, "Knew you'd bite. Meet me tomorrow, my spot." His spot was a loft in Midtown, a step down from the Buckhead penthouse, but still too nice for a guy who'd lost his silver spoon. Exposed brick, big windows, a desk cluttered with laptops and coffee cups, startup vibes, not trust fund bullshit. He'd aged out of the swagger, or most of it, his shoulders looser, his grin less smug. "Welcome to the grind," he said, waving her in. "No suits, no boardroom, just us and some coders I roped in. You're the voice. Tell us what works, what doesn't." They started slow, meetings twice a week, her sketching ideas while he typed, the coders hunched over screens. She didn't trust him fully, kept her guard up, but he didn't push, didn't flirt, just worked. Months passed, the app taking shape, her voice in every line of it, features for kids like her, kids who'd been cut down and left to bleed. Noah watched her sometimes, quiet, like he was seeing her for the first time. "You're good at this," he said once, late one night, the loft dark except for a desk lamp. "Better than me." She smirked, not looking up from her notes. Damn right. It was a rainy Tuesday, 4 months in, when it happened. They'd stayed late, the coders gone, rain hammering the windows like a drumline. Jasmine sat on the couch, a beer in hand, her first time taking one from him, her sketch pad open to a new design. Noah leaned against the desk, sipping his own, the air heavy with something unspoken. "You ever think about Westwood?" he asked, his voice low, careful. She glanced up, her eyes narrowing. "Every damn day." "Why?" He set his bottle down, crossing the room to sit beside her. Not close, but close enough. "I fucked up back then. Laughed when I shouldn't have. Ran when I could have stayed. I'm sorry, Jazz. For real." She studied him, the lines on his face, the way he didn't look away. "Took you long enough," she said, her tone dry, but softer than usual. "Don't mean I forgive you." He nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Fair. I'll take that." The rain picked up, a steady roar against the glass, and she didn't know why. Maybe the beer, maybe the quiet. But she didn't pull away when he shifted closer. His hand brushed hers, tentative, and she let it stay. "You're still a jackass," she murmured, but her voice lacked heat. He chuckled, low and rough. "Yeah, but I'm your jackass now." She rolled her eyes, but when he leaned in, she didn't stop him. Their lips met, slow at first, then harder, a spark catching fire after years of ash. It wasn't rushed, wasn't wild, just them on that couch, the rain drowning out the world. Her tank top hit the floor, his shirt followed, their hands finding skin like they'd been waiting for it. The hardwood was cold under her back when they slid down, her braids fanning out, his breath hot against her neck. It wasn't about love. Not yet. Just need, trust cracking open after too long locked shut. When it was over, she lay there, staring at the ceiling, his arm slung across her waist. "Don't get soft on me now," she said, her voice steady. He laughed, breathless. Wouldn't dream of it. They didn't talk about it after. Didn't need to. She got up, pulled her clothes back on, and grabbed her bag. "See you Thursday," she said, heading for the door. He nodded, still sprawled on the floor, watching her go. "Yeah, Thursday." She stepped into the rain, the cool drops hitting her face, washing away the heat. She didn't know what this was, didn't want to name it, but it felt right for now. The next day, she hit the gym, the bag waiting like always. She wrapped her hands, slower this time, her mind replaying the night. His hands, his voice, the way he'd looked at her like she was more than a story. She punched hard, each hit a question she didn't ask out loud. Malik was there, leaning against the wall, his arms crossed. "Heard you're working with some white boy now," he said, his tone sharp. "That true?" She didn't stop, her fists slamming the bag. "My business, not yours." He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "Used to be my business, Jazz. You forgetting where you came from?" She turned, her eyes hard. "I don't forget shit. I'm just moving forward. You should try it." He smirked, but there was no warmth in it. "Watch yourself, girl. Money don't change who you are." She didn't answer, just hit the bag again, harder, the thud echoing through the gym. Back at the loft, Noah sat at his desk, the app glowing on his screen. He'd fucked up once. Laughed when she hurt, bailed when she needed him. Not this time. He didn't know what they were, partners, something more. But he knew he wasn't letting go. Not yet. The loft in Midtown smelled like coffee and solder, a sharp mix that clung to the air as the coders hunched over their laptops, screens glowing in the dim light. Jasmine Carter sat on the edge of the couch, her sketchpad open, a pencil tapping against her knee. At 22, she'd carved out a spot here. Half designer, half soul of the app they'd been grinding on for months. It was live now, a sleek little thing called Stand Up, letting kids report bullying straight from their phones, anonymous if they wanted, with counselors on the other end. Downloads were climbing, thousands in Atlanta alone, and she'd poured everything into it, every late night, every fight she'd ever walked away from. It wasn't just a job. It was her punching back, louder than her fists ever could. Noah Bennett leaned against the desk, 25 now, his black tee wrinkled from too many hours staring at code. The swagger was gone, replaced by a quiet focus that still surprised her sometimes. He'd lost the penthouse, the Audi, most of the cash, cut off by his folks after he'd told them to shove their optics where the sun didn't shine. The loft was all he had left, a scrappy startup hub he'd built from scratch, and she'd watched him claw his way into it, proving he wasn't just the rich asshole she'd met 3 years ago. "Numbers look good," he said, glancing at her over the rim of a coffee mug. "We're hitting schools next week. Pitch it to principals. Get 'em on board." Jasmine nodded, her braids brushing her shoulders. "Yeah. Make sure it's free for the kids who need it most. Ain't no point if they can't get in." He smirked, a ghost of the old Noah. "Already on it, badass. You think I'd charge 'em?" She didn't smile back, just held his gaze. "I think you're learning." He chuckled, setting the mug down, and for a second the room felt lighter, like they were winning, really winning. That night, they stayed late, the coders peeling out one by one until it was just them, the hum of the city seeping through the brick walls. Rain streaked the windows again, a soft patter that made the loft feel smaller, closer. Jasmine stretched out on the couch, her tank top riding up, showing the curve of her hip where a scar from a Southside scrap still lingered. Noah dropped into the chair across from her, cracking a beer and sliding one her way. She caught it, popping the cap with her thumb. "You look tired," he said, his voice low, not teasing this time. She took a sip, the cold biting her throat. "Been tired. You ain't exactly fresh either." He laughed, running a hand through his hair, the stubble on his jaw catching the light. "Fair. This thing's kicking my ass, but it's worth it. You're worth it." She raised an eyebrow, setting the bottle down. "Don't get soft on me, Noah. We're good, but I ain't your muse." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his eyes steady. "Nah, you're my partner. Best one I've got." The air shifted, heavy with something they'd been dancing around since that rainy night months back. She didn't pull away when he moved to the couch, sitting close, his knee brushing hers. "Jazz," he said, softer now. "We're doing this, really doing it. Don't tell me you don't feel it." She looked at him, her guard still up but cracking, and nodded once. "Yeah, I feel it." His hand found hers, rough against her calluses, and she let him pull her in. It wasn't like last time. Not slow, not gentle. They hit a cheap motel that night, too wired to go home, the neon sign buzzing outside as they stumbled through the door. The bed creaked under them, springs groaning, the room smelling like bleach and regret. Her shirt was off in seconds, his followed, their hands desperate, grasping, like they were holding on to something about to slip away. It was quick, raw, her nails digging into his back, his breath ragged against her ear. "Don't leave me again," she whispered, barely audible over the rain. "I won't," he gasped, his voice breaking. "I swear, Jazz." When it was over, they lay there, tangled in damp sheets, the silence louder than the storm outside. She didn't stay, grabbed her clothes, kissed his forehead, and left, the door clicking shut behind her. She thought that was the peak, thought they'd made it through the fire. She was wrong. The first crack came 2 days later, a Thursday afternoon when the app crashed. Servers overloaded, kids flooding the chat lines. Noah scrambled with the coders, swearing under his breath, while Jasmine fielded calls from schools pissed about the downtime. "Fix it," she snapped, pacing the loft. "These kids ain't got time for glitches." He nodded, sweat beading on his forehead. "We're on it. Give me an hour." They patched it by nightfall, but the damage was done, trust shaken, whispers starting. Then the video dropped. Friday morning, her phone buzzed with a text from Keisha. "Jazz, you see this shit?" And a link. She clicked it, her stomach sinking as a grainy clip played, her voice distorted but clear, saying, "It's all fake. Stand-up's a scam. Just me and Noah cashing in." It wasn't her. Couldn't be. But the edits were tight. The kind of deep fake bullshit that fooled anyone who didn't look twice. It hit X first, then Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. Jasmine Carter. Gold digger strikes again. Comments piled up. Lying bitch. Scamming kids for clout. Typical hood trash. She stormed into the loft, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Noah was already there, his laptop open, his face pale. "You see it?" she demanded, her voice shaking with rage. He nodded, not meeting her eyes. Yeah, it's fake, Jazz. I know you didn't say that. She threw her phone on the couch, the video still looping. Then who the fuck did? This ain't random, Noah. Someone's out for us. He rubbed his face, exhaustion carving lines into his skin. I don't know. Hackers, maybe? We've got enemies, competitors, pissed off parents. I'm digging. It got worse. By Saturday, the servers were hit again, this time a full-on attack, wiping data, crashing the app for good. Schools pulled out, funders bailed, and the internet turned it into a circus. Stand-up flops, founders exposed. Jasmine's name was everywhere, her face plastered on memes, her past dragged up like dirt they couldn't wait to sling. Noah's phone rang off the hook. Cheryl, his dad's old assistant, now some PR shark. You're done, Noah. This is a liability. Cut ties, save what's left. He hung up on her, but the damage was done. Sunday night, she hit the gym, needing to feel something solid. Malik was waiting, his arms crossed, a smirk twisting his lips. Told you, Jazz, he said, stepping into her path. That white boy's trouble. Now look at you fucked again. She glared, her fists clenching. Back off, Malik. This ain't your lane. He laughed, cold and sharp. Should have stayed with me. None of this app bullshit. I got a fight tonight, underground. You in or what? Could use that fire. She didn't want to, knew it was dumb, but the anger burned too hot to say no. The fight was in a warehouse off Peachtree, a crowd of roughnecks and hustlers cheering under flickering lights. She stepped into the ring, gloves loose, her opponent a wiry chick with a mean streak. The first punch landed hard, splitting her lip, blood hot on her tongue. She swung back, relentless, her fists a blur. Malik's voice in her ear, egging her on. Hit her, Jazz! Fuck her up! The crowd roared, but it wasn't enough. The chick caught her with a knee, then a right hook, and Jasmine went down, the concrete cold against her cheek, blood pooling under her mouth. Malik didn't stop there. He'd rigged it. Let the chick wail on her, then stepped in when Noah showed up, frantic, shoving through the crowd. Jazz! He yelled, lunging for the ring. Malik grabbed him, slamming him against a pillar, fists flying, cracking Noah's ribs, blackening his eye. Stay out of her life, rich boy, Malik snarled, dropping him in the dirt. Jasmine saw it through a haze, dragging herself up, her voice raw. Stop! But it was too late. Malik walked off, the crowd thinning, leaving her and Noah broken on the ground. They made it to a gas station lot, Noah's truck parked crooked, his face bruised, her lips swollen. He leaned against the hood, breathing hard. I fucked up, Jazz. Couldn't stop it. App's gone. Everything's gone. She spat blood onto the asphalt, her eyes hard. We fucked up, but you ran once. I trusted you not to do it again. Get out. He flinched, reaching for her. I'm not running, Jazz. I'm here, I swear. She shoved him off, her voice breaking. Just go, Noah. I can't right now. He didn't fight her. Climbed into the truck, the engine rumbling as he pulled away. She stood there, alone under the buzzing lights, her hands shaking, blood drying on her chin. The app was dead, her name trashed. Noah beaten down, and she'd let Malik play her like a damn fool. She walked home, the city a blur, her steps heavy. Inside her apartment, she sank to the floor, the punching bag looming in the corner, silent. I'm still here, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Still fucking here. Noah crashed in his truck that night, parked in some empty lot, his ribs screaming with every breath. He'd lost it all, money, app, her, and it hit harder than Malik's fists. He'd laughed at her once, back at Westwood, thought she was a game. Now she was everything, and he'd let her down. He punched the steering wheel, the horn blaring into the dark, his knuckles splitting. Fuck, he gasped, slumping back. He didn't know how to fix it, didn't know if he could, but he wasn't done trying. 2 days later, Keisha showed up at Jasmine's door, her face grim. "Jazz, I fucked up again. I told some folks you and Noah were tight. Didn't think it'd blow up like this. I'm sorry." Jasmine stared at her, too tired to yell. "Get out," she said, flat, shutting the door. She didn't need apologies. She needed a way back up. The gym was her only stop that week. The bag taking every hit she had left, her knuckles bleeding through the tape. She didn't know what came next, but she knew she wasn't breaking. Not yet. The apartment smelled like damp plaster and burnt coffee, a cramped little hole carved out of some nameless European city where the rain never seemed to stop. Jasmine Carter stood by the window, her breath fogging the glass, her dark eyes tracing the blur of headlights 5 stories below. At 27, or close enough she didn't count anymore, she'd left Atlanta behind, trading its sticky heat for this gray sprawl. Her braids were shorter now, chopped to her shoulders, a practical cut for a life that didn't leave room for vanity. She wore a faded hoodie, the sleeves frayed, her hands tucked into the pockets like she was holding herself together. Noah Bennett sat at a rickety table across the room, 30 now, his face harder, leaner, carved by years of scrapping and losing. His laptop glowed in the dim light, a half-empty bottle of cheap whiskey beside it, the kind that burned more than it soothed. The loft in Midtown was a memory, sold off when stand-up crashed, when the money dried up and the world turned its back. He'd traded his black tees for flannel, his stubble thicker, his green eyes carrying a weight that hadn't been there at 25. They'd built something new here, a small outfit, not an app this time, but a network, connecting kids who'd been knocked down with people who'd been there. It wasn't flashy, barely paid the rent, but it was theirs. They'd been at it for years, piecing it together through fights and silences, the kind of partnership that didn't need words to hold. The rain-soaked night in Atlanta had shifted them, cracked open something neither could name, but they didn't lean on it, didn't let it define them. They argued plenty, voices sharp over late-night calls or crumpled maps, but they stayed. No more running, no more bailing. She'd punch his arm when he got too quiet. He'd smirk when she got too loud. And somehow it worked. Tonight was different. The air felt heavy, like it was waiting for something to break. Jasmine turned from the window, crossing her arms. "You hear from that school in Prague yet?" she asked, her voice rough from a day of talking, meetings with volunteers, kids, anyone who'd listen. Noah nodded, not looking up from the screen. "Yeah, they're in, starting next month. 50 kids, maybe more." She grunted, satisfied, and dropped onto the couch, the springs groaning under her weight. "Good. Keep it moving." He glanced at her then, his smirk faint but there. "You ever gonna chill, Jazz? We're good. Better than good." She rolled her eyes, kicking her boots up on the coffee table, a chipped slab of wood they'd scavenged from the street. "Chill's for people who ain't been burned. I'm fine like this." He laughed, a low rumble, and took a swig of whiskey, sliding the bottle her way. She caught it, tipping it back, the burn sharp against her throat. "Fair," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Wouldn't want you any other way." They'd been through hell to get here. Atlanta's collapse still a raw scar, Malik's fists, Keisha's betrayal, the internet's venom. Stand-up's crash had stripped them bare, her name trashed, his savings gone. But they'd clawed back slow and ugly. Oh, and she'd hit the gym harder after that night, her knuckles scarred from bags and walls, while he'd sold everything, moved them here on a hunch and a plane ticket. The network was small, grassroots, messy, but it reached kids in 10 cities now, a lifeline she'd built from her own cuts. Noah had stopped laughing at pain somewhere along the way, stopped playing the rich kid, and she'd stopped pushing him out. They were a unit, battered but solid. A knock at the door snapped the quiet sharp and sudden. Jasmine frowned, setting the bottle down, her hand brushing the knife she kept in her boot. Old habits from Southside never died. "Who the hell's that?" she muttered, standing. Noah shrugged, closing his laptop. "Ain't expecting nobody. Check it." She crossed the room, her steps light, and peered through the peephole. A tall black man stood there, his face shadowed under a hood, his shoulders broad in a dark coat. She didn't know him, didn't like him already. She opened the door a crack, her body angled, ready. "What you want?" she said, her voice low, steady. The man tilted his head, his eyes catching the light, brown, deep, familiar, in a way that made her stomach twist. "Jasmine Carter," he said, his tone calm, measured. "We need to talk." She didn't move, her grip tightening on the door. "I don't know you. Say what you gotta say and bounce." He reached into his coat, slow, deliberate, and pulled out a photo, creased, yellowed, the edges worn soft. He held it up, and her breath caught. It was her, 5 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, standing next to a man in a faded jacket, his arm around her. She'd seen that face in dreams, in blurry memories she'd buried deep. Her dad, gone since she was 6, dead in a car wreck, or so her mom had said. The man in the doorway looked like him, older, harder, but the same jaw, the same eyes. "Your pops ain't dead," he said, his voice cutting through her haze. "He's alive, and he wants to see you." Noah was on his feet now, crossing the room fast. "Jazz, what the hell's he talking about?" he demanded, his hand on her shoulder, protective but tense. She didn't answer, her eyes locked on the photo, then the man. "You're lying," she said, her voice shaking, not with fear but with something darker. "He's gone. Been gone. Who the fuck are you?" The man didn't flinch, just slid the photo through the crack, along with a folded paper. "Name's Darius. I work for him. He's been watching you. Everything you've done. Atlanta. This. He's got something you need. That's all I'm saying." She snatched the photo and paper, stepping back, her heart pounding. "Get out," she snapped, slamming the door before he could reply. Noah grabbed the lock, twisting it shut, then turned to her, his face tight. "Jazz, talk to me. What's this shit? You said your dad died when you were a kid." She didn't look at him, her hands trembling as she unfolded the paper. A scrawled address in Atlanta. No name, no explanation. "He did," she said, her voice raw. "Car crash. Mom told me. I was 6. Never saw a body, never went to no funeral. She said he was gone, and I believed her." She sank onto the couch, the photo clutched in her fist, her eyes tracing the little girl she'd been. Happy, safe, before everything went to hell. Noah dropped beside her, his hand hovering, then settling on her back. "Fuck, Jazz. This is crazy. You think this dude's for real?" She shook her head, slow, her mind spinning. "I don't know. Looks like him. Feels like him, but why now? After all this? What's he want?" Noah took the paper, reading the address, his brow furrowing. "Back in Atlanta? We could go check it out, figure what's what." She glared at him, her voice sharp. "Go? After everything we built here? I ain't running back 'cause some ghost says so." He didn't back down, his eyes steady. "Not running, facing it. You've been fighting shadows your whole life, Jazz. If he's alive, if he's got answers, don't you want to know?" She didn't answer, just stared at the photo, her thumb brushing the man's face. Her dad, maybe, or a lie dressed up like one. The room went quiet. The rain a dull roar outside, and she felt it, the ground shifting under her, everything she'd known cracking open. "If he's alive," she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. "Everything's a lie. Mom, Southside, me. Who the hell am I if he's been out there this whole time?" Noah's hand tightened on her shoulder, his voice low, firm. "You're still you, Jazz. Strongest person I know. Don't matter what he says or what he's got. We'll figure it out, together, like always." She looked at him then, really looked, and saw it. The guy who'd laughed at her pain once, who'd run when it got hard, now sitting here, bruised and steady, not going anywhere. "You sure about that?" she asked, her tone hard but searching. "If this blows up, if he's real, if it's bad, you still in?" He didn't hesitate, his jaw set. "I'm not going nowhere, Jazz. Not this time, but you gotta choose. Stay here, keep building, or go back and face it. Your call." She didn't answer, just leaned back, the photo and paper in her lap. Her mind a storm she couldn't quiet. They'd fought too much, lost too much, to let this break them. But it could, and she knew it. Hours passed, the whiskey bottle empty, the rain slowing to a drizzle. They stepped onto the tiny balcony, the city a wet blur below, the moon cutting through the clouds like a blade. She stood at the railing, her hands gripping the cold metal, the photo tucked in her pocket now, the address burning in her head. Noah stood beside her, close but not touching, his breath fogging in the night air. "If he's alive," she said, her voice steady but distant. "I don't know who I am anymore. Everything I fought for, what's it mean?" He didn't answer right away, just watched her, the woman who'd pulled him out of his own wreckage, who'd never bent, not once. "Means you're still the badass who punched Trey Larson's lights out," he said, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "Means you're still the one who built this with me. From nothing. Don't matter who he is. You're you, Jazz. Always will be." She didn't smile, didn't soften, just stared out at the dark, the weight of it pressing down. "Maybe," she said, her voice low, "but I gotta know. If he's out there, if he's been watching, I need the truth." Noah nodded, his hand brushing hers on the railing, a quiet promise. "Then we go. Whenever you're ready." They stood there, the city sprawling beneath them. The address on that paper a tether pulling her back to Atlanta, back to a past she'd buried. She didn't know what waited there. Her dad, a con, something worse. But she knew she couldn't stay still. Couldn't keep running from it. The moon hung low, casting their shadows long and thin, and she felt it. A choice she hadn't made yet. A door she couldn't close. The paper sat on the table inside, a question mark in black ink, and they didn't touch it, didn't speak again. They just stood, side by side, the rain a faint whisper now, the night stretching out endless and unknown. She'd decide, tomorrow, next week, whenever, but for now, she let the silence hold her, let Noah's presence anchor her. They weren't done. Not with this, not with each other, but what came next was a shadow she couldn't see through. Noah broke the quiet, his voice soft but sure. "Whatever you pick, I'm here, Jazz. All the way." She didn't look at him, just nodded once, her eyes on the horizon. "I know," she said, and that was enough, for now. The city hummed below, alive and restless, and they stayed there, two figures under the moonlight, caught between what they'd built and what might break them still. The address waited, a pull she couldn't ignore, a truth she didn't know if she wanted. They'd go, or they wouldn't. But either way, the story wasn't over. Whoa, that twist just flipped everything, didn't it? Jasmine's world's cracking open and Noah's right there with her, but what's waiting in Atlanta? Her dad, a lie, something bigger? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Who do you think this mystery man is, and should they chase that address? Don't walk away now. This tale's got more secrets to spill, and you won't want to miss 'em.